Have you ever stumbled upon an old record or cassette tape and been transported back in time? Maybe it's a Led Zeppelin or Fleetwood Mac album that takes you straight to the 1970s. If you long for the days of bell-bottoms, mood rings, and 8-track players, you're not alone. The 1970s were an iconic era for rock music. From psychedelic and progressive rock to disco and punk, some of the most legendary bands emerged during this decade. Their timeless songs still play on classic rock radio and streaming playlists today. Join me as we revisit 13 of the most beloved bands that define the 1970s music scene. First up, Led Zeppelin. This English rock band formed in London in 1968 and consisted of Jimmy Page on guitar, Robert Plant on vocals, John Paul Jones on bass and keyboards, and John Bonham on drums. They pioneered the heavy metal and hard rock genres with their intense guitar riffs and Plant's unbridled vocals. Songs like Whole Lotta Love and Stairway to Heaven demonstrated Zeppelin's blues influences and use of acoustic elements. Their free-flowing live shows incorporated improvisation and stretched songs to new lengths. They drew huge crowds at massive outdoor festivals and sold-out arenas. Zeppelin released untitled albums known by Roman numerals and mystical symbols rather than conventional titles. Their fourth album contains their most played song, Stairway to Heaven. It highlights Zeppelin's folk-infused style and showcases Jimmy Page's iconic guitar solo. Next up in our time machine is Pink Floyd. This English psychedelic and progressive rock band formed in London in 1965. Their initial lineup included Syd Barrett on guitar and vocals, Nick Mason on drums, Roger Waters on bass and vocals, and Richard Wright on keyboards. In their early years, Pink Floyd gained notice as a psychedelic group playing extended instrumental jam sessions. Barrett penned pop-leaning psychedelic tunes that became 1960s favorites like See Emily Play and Arnold Lane. But his behavior grew increasingly erratic, likely due to mental illness and drug use. In 1968, guitarist David Gilmour joined as Barrett's mental health declined. Under Waters' leadership, Pink Floyd adopted a more collaborative approach to writing. Throughout the 1970s, they created expansive concept albums exploring philosophical themes and complex musical arrangements. Now let's hop across the pond to Los Angeles, where laid-back vibes bred country rock. The Eagles formed there in 1971, bringing together musicians Don Henley, Glenn Frey, Bernie Leadon, and Randy Meisner. With melodic tunes and smooth harmonies, these four forged a fresh Southern California sound. The Eagles achieved success right out of the gate. Their first album, Eagles, delivered hits like Take It Easy and Peaceful Easy Feeling. A string of gold and platinum records cemented the Eagles as America's biggest band by the mid-70s. Henley's raspy vocals powered rockers like Life in the Fast Lane, and romantic ballads like Desperado highlighted their softer side. Hotel California came next in 1976. The brooding title track explored the dark side of fame and excess. Contrastingly, New Kid in Town and I Can't Tell You Why captured their signature laid-back vibe. The album has sold over 32 million copies and still resonates with listeners. As creative differences arose, first Meisner and later Leadon exited. Timothy Schmidt and Joe Walsh stepped in over the years. Internal strife plagued the band by 1980 when they first split, yet their commercial success never wavered. From mellow country rock, let's visit the dance floors of the disco era. Swedish superstars Abba lit them up with their flashy style, infectious melodies, and elaborate costumes. Agnetha Fältskog, Björn Ulvaeus, Benny Andersson, and Annie Frid Lyngstad formed this sensational pop group in Stockholm in 1972. Their 1974 Eurovision Song Contest win with Waterloo propelled Abba to stardom. Chart-topping hits like Dancing Queen, Take a Chance on Me, and The Winner Takes It All made them global sensations throughout the late 70s. Abba mastered the art of catchy chorus hooks that stick in your head instantly. Their music incorporated elements of disco, Schlager, folk, and classical. Costume changes, choreography, and music videos added to the theatricality. At their peak, Abba were among the most commercially successful acts in the world. They became Sweden's biggest export since Volvo. Behind the scenes, the two couples who comprised Abba Feldskog, Ulvaeus and Lyngstad Andersson ended their marriages as pressures mounted. Their later music adopted a more introspective tone. Exhaustion from their grueling schedule ultimately led to the group's dissolution in 1982. From Eurodisco, let's cross the pond again to Birmingham, England, birthplace of heavy metal icons Black Sabbath. Guitarist Tony Iommi, bassist Geezer Butler, drummer Bill Ward, and vocalist Ozzy Osbourne came together here in 1968. With doom-laden lyrics and dark, plodding rhythms, Sabbath took rock to sinister new depths. Their 1970 self-titled debut dropped like a dark cloud on the hippie optimism of the 60s. Iommi's heavy, down-tuned guitar riffs set the blueprint for metal to come. Osbourne's wailing voice and Butler's thundering bass cemented their sinister sound. Critics panned their debut album as unlistenable, yet fans couldn't get enough. 1971's Paranoid took Sabbath mainstream with hits Iron Man and War Pigs. Their next albums, Master of Reality and Volume 4, solidified their standing as the first true heavy metal band. Ozzy left Sabbath in 1978 to launch his successful solo career. A rotating cast of musicians cycled through in later years amidst personal struggles. Larger than life on stage, Ozzy reunited with Sabbath multiple times over the decades for arena tours and performances. Sadly, drummer Bill Ward's declining health prevented him from participating in Sabbath's final tours. From metal, let's head south to Jacksonville, Florida, home of Southern rock icons Leonard Skyner. Childhood friends Ronnie Van Zant, Alan Collins, and Gary Rossington started playing music together in 1964 as a high school band. After adding new members, they officially became Leonard Skyner in 1969, a joke name mocking their gym teacher. Their 1973 debut album, pronounced Leonard Skyner, introduced the band's bluesy, gritty sound. Arena rock classics like Freebird and Sweet Home Alabama dominated 1970s FM radio. Van Zant's whiskey-soaked vocals and Collins' fiery guitar riffs fueled hits and won fans. Tragedy struck in 1977 when a plane crash killed lead singer Ronnie Van Zant, guitarist Steve Gaines, backup singer Cassie Gaines, and several road crew members. The crash seriously injured the other band members as well. But the Leonard Skyner story wasn't over. Surviving members reunited 10 years later in 1987, with Van Zant's younger brother Johnny on lead vocals. Their first reunion tour was a major success. Leonard Skyner kept making new music and touring over the following decades. From Southern rock royalty, let's move to a brother-sister duo with harmonies sweeter than pecan pie. The Carpenters charmed listeners with their sentimental love songs throughout the 1970s. Siblings Karen and Richard Carpenter began performing together in the late 1960s after moving from Connecticut to California. With Karen's velvety contralto vocals and Richard's lush arrangements, the Carpenters crafted an instantly recognizable soft rock style. Melancholy ballads like Rainy Days and Mondays and Goodbye to Love showcased Karen's emotional depth and range. Up-tempo hits like Close to You and Top of the World highlighted their sunnier side. The Carpenters broke through in 1970 with their Grammy-winning Close to You. The meticulously produced album featured the Wrecking Crew session musicians and launched a decade of success. Chart toppers like We've Only Just Begun and Please Mr. Postman dominated early 70s radio. From California, let's head north to San Francisco. Psychedelic rockers Jefferson Airplane took flight here in 1965 during the hippie counterculture movement. Vocalists Marty Balin and Grace Slick joined musicians Jorma Kaukonen, Jack Casady, Spencer Dryden, and Paul Kantner as the band's classic lineup. Their 1967 album, Surrealistic Pillow, put Jefferson Airplane on the map. Songs like Somebody to Love and White Rabbit epitomize the trippy summer of love sound. Grace Slick's powerful vocals and the band's improvisational style defined them. Performing at Woodstock in 1969 skyrocketed Jefferson Airplane's popularity. They pioneered jam rock with extended psychedelic improvisations on stage. Subsequent albums like Volunteers incorporated more political themes and dense instrumentation. From the West Coast, let's head south to Los Angeles, where the Doors exploded onto the music scene in 1965. The quartet of Jim Morrison on vocals, Ray Manzarek on keys, Robbie Krieger on guitar, and John Densmore on drums brought a dark, poetic edge to rock music. The Doors stood out with Morrison's charismatic stage presence, mystical lyrics, and dynamic baritone voice. Hits like Light My Fire, People Are Strange, and Riders on the Storm incorporated psychedelic and blues influences. Their haunting organ and guitar interplay forged a sinister sound. After signing to Elektra Records, the band shot to fame with their 1967 self-titled debut. Morrison's wild antics during live performances added to their dangerous mystique, but this lifestyle led to his unraveling. Their fourth album, L.A. Woman, reprised their blues roots before Morrison died in 1971 at age 27. From the Sunset Strip, let's ride east to the gritty streets of New York City. Here, the Ramones blasted the punk scene into overdrive with their breakneck tunes. Guitarist Johnny Ramone, bassist D.D. Ramone, drummer Tommy Ramone, and vocalist Joey Ramone came together in Forest Hills, Queens in 1974. With their leather jackets, torn jeans, and disaffected attitude, the Ramones spit in the face of the 1970s rock establishment. Songs like Blitzkrieg Bop, Sheena is a punk rocker, and I Wanna Be Sedated melted faces with buzzsaw guitar riffs. Their rebellious spirit and stripped-down style defined punk rock. The Ramones spent the next 20 years tirelessly touring the world and recording albums, though mainstream commercial success largely eluded them. Their influence was monumental. Hardcore punk bands like Black Flag and the Dead Kennedys followed their template. Hopping back over the pond, we land amidst the first wave of British punk with The Clash. Joe Strummer, Mick Jones, Paul Simonon, and Nicky Topper head-on united in London in 1976. With their politically charged lyrics and aggressive sound, The Clash stood alongside the Sex Pistols as punk's defiant torchbearers. From their 1977 self-titled debut through combative classics like London Calling and Sandinista, The Clash channeled punk rage into social commentary. Their musical scope expanded to incorporate reggae, funk, and rap influences. Complex songs like London Calling and Rock the Casbah demonstrated their creative evolution. Finally, our time machine journey through the 1970s ends with a band whose name says it all. Kiss, bassist Gene Simmons, guitarist Paul Stanley, drummer Peter Criss, and guitarist Ace Frehley united in New York City in 1973. Their mission? Give rock and roll a much-needed makeover. Kiss reinvented themselves as larger-than-life superheroes of rock, donning comic book-inspired costumes and demonic makeup. Their electrifying stage shows incorporated pyrotechnics, fake blood, and levitating drum kits. And those platform boots. Talk about leg day. Musically, Kiss bridged glam rock and heavy metal with party anthems like Rock and Roll All Night and Detroit Rock City. Love songs like Beth showed their sentimental side. They built a multi-million-dollar empire of albums, merchandise, and memorabilia that still thrives today. Wow, what a trip back through the sights and sounds of 70s rock. From Led Zeppelin to Kiss, we covered a full spectrum. Did any favorite bands of yours get a shout-out? Let me know in the comments which tunes take you straight back to the 1970s. And be sure to click like and subscribe for more musical time travel. Peace out.